Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty leagues, PPR leagues, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome into the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Emmet Wyman, coming around here on the Wednesday recap show, giving you guys some crazy recaps and tidbits from Week 10 in the NFL. A lot of different avenues we can go down. We have some pretty good games this weekend, but we're gonna have to start the show off and just address the elephant in the room. And, the elephant in the room is the guy that wears number 11 on the Eagles, because he stinks! I mean, oh my goodness. Carson Wentz, you are bad. Okay? This game, bro. I mean, the Cowboys game was like, that was so pitiful. I tried to explain to everybody, how even though the Eagles won the game, how bad the Eagles just are as a team. Okay? The fact that the Cowboys threw in some Italian kid from James Madison and literally were leading the Eagles at halftime. Okay? I know that don't mean crap for most of you, but the fact that the Cowboys threw an Italian kid from James Madison, who's a rookie, in the game, and they were beating the Eagles, they were literally beating the Eagles going into the half, should show how bad of a team the Eagles are. Okay, if they threw that kid in versus any other team in this league, the Giants, the Redskins, the Lions, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, okay, they would be blowing Dallas out. But the fact that the Eagles couldn't even come. They barely eked off a win versus the Cowboys, 14-9. Okay, even though the score says 23, I don't want to have to recap that. So then they go on the bye. All right, they go on the bye. And yeah, guys, listen, I'm diving right into it because I'm not going to waste time, beating around the bush trying to say, oh, Carson Wentz, maybe he needs a weapon or two. A weapon? It's the freaking Giants. It's the Giants. All right. Now listen. Before we, go down to the Eagles. The Giants are still really bad. Let's make no mistake about it. They still stink. Their players aren't good. Their quarterback stinks. He had a nice run yesterday. I'm not going to lie. That was a pretty nice run. Good play designed by JG. But aside from that, who the Giants beat? Nothing. They beat the Redskins twice. What does that mean? Nothing. So the Giants still stink. But at least the Giants are improving. Okay, that's what I'll credit with. I'll credit Joe Judge, JG, and the rest of that coaching staff for at least improving the crappy talent that they've had to work with since they got there. I'll give them credit. They're working hard. So at least the Giants have something to look forward to in, I guess, ethical regards. But back to the Eagles. So you go in the bye. You just beat the Cowboys 23-9, as unenthusiastic as possible. You're going into the bye thinking, all right, let's regroup. We're going to get some weapons back this week. Miles Sanders, the back, he's coming back this week, okay? Dallas Goedert's going to finally be healthy, so we'll have him as our tight end one. We still don't have Ertz, but Ertz hasn't been doing much this year. Goedert's looked like the more explosive player, so we'll have him as our starter fine. Our first-round pick, Jalen Reagor, is back at receiver. He's healthy. He's fine. Travis Fulgham, he's fine. So you got all you need to beat the Giants. All right, and then you got Boston Scott too, who really ain't much of a weapon, but I mean he has good game versus the Giants, and he had a touchdown. It was like a 40. This is the stupidity in the Eagles. The guy has like a 40 or 50-yard touchdown run, goes untouched, and they don't even give him the ball anymore. I mean that's just crazy. But going into the game, Giants come out early, hit him with that Danny Dimes 40-yard run. He doesn't fall down this time. He scores. Giants go up early. They're pounding him. Carson Wentz is trying to fight back. He can't do it. I mean, there's some plays where literally they're screen passes. They're just calling screens. Like, Carson, get the ball out as fast as you can because I don't want to look. That's literally what Doug Peterson's saying with this play calling. Carson, just get the ball out as fast as you can because I can't stand watching your ugly ass try to throw the ball anymore. It's just, he can't do it. All right? Especially when you're looking to your left and you see number 2, Jalen Hurts, sitting on the sideline. Like, you're going to let this, you're just going to watch this dude? Like, I mean, I know I can't throw the ball either, but heck, I can do a little bit better than that. So, anyway, so they're throwing, I mean, he's throwing screen passes that are literally at the player's ankles. Guys are having to dive down by the shoelaces to pick up screen passes from Carson Wentz. All right? Screen passes. He can't even complete a screen pass properly. A pass that you and anybody who's watching this could make. So, I mean, anyway, so game goes along. And the Eagles are literally just playing Battleship. That's all they're doing. All right. You guys, you remember Battleship, right? You have a board. It's basically a little, I was going to say chessboard, but it's basically just a board of circles and dots, right? C4 is a location on the board. So you go 3 rows down, 4 rows across. Okay, C4. If that person has a ship there, boom, you knock them out. If they don't, oh, you missed. All right? It's a hit or miss. You're literally guessing. That's the name of the game. Whoever guesses correctly first wins the game. The thing is, Battleship don't freaking work in NFL football. All right? There's no guessing. You got to have an identity. You got to have a game plan. You got to know what you are as a team to maximize that game plan and your play calling. And you got to know what you're good and what you aren't good at. And the Eagles have answers to none of those questions, which is why they are literally playing Battleship. And I mean, Doug Peterson didn't do a great job either play calling. I know that's really where a lot of the Eagles fans themselves are directing their negativity after that loss, going right at him and saying, "Hey, you were 0 for 9 on third down." I mean, look. The play calling wasn't spectacular. I'm not going to say that. But, I mean, 0 for 9 on third down, that's not all the head coach. All right, that's a quarterback issue. John Elway. All right, you guys know John Elway, right? The guy who's basically running the Broncos into the ground. He used to be one of the best quarterbacks ever. Okay? And he is one of the best quarterbacks ever. 2-time Super Bowl champ. He said, a famous quote, he said, "They don't pay me for touchdowns, they pay me for third down." They pay me for third down. They don't pay me for touchdowns. They don't pay me for yards. They pay me for third down. Can I move the chains on third down? 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 11. Can I make a play on my own? Because let's be real, guys. I mean, the play calling on the 3rd and long, you're basically you're playing Battleship. You're guessing. All right, screw it. Like in Madden. All right, screw it. We're going to go 4 guys running as fast as they can down the field. All right, screw it. We're going to do a dig route, and the other guy's going to come over the top of the post. All right? There's only so much you could do from the sideline. The player's got to make the play. And it starts with the quarterback. All right? The best quarterbacks will make the play on third down. Pat Mahomes will make the play on third down. Dak will make the play on third down. Russell Wilson will make the play on third down. Give me some other names. I mean, you guys name it. Seriously. Even Tua. Tua was making plays on third down. Herbert. Even though Herbert had a rough week. We'll get into him later. But Carson Wentz couldn't make one play on third down. Not one play. And he doesn't have any receivers. He doesn't have any. Guys, come on. You're going to say we don't have receivers for 3 freaking years? They already rebuilt the receiving corps. All right, granted, Deshaun Jackson, he's hurt. But that's not like that's something that Howie Roseman should have known when he signed him. I don't know why he didn't. I think he's just doing that out of emotion. Alshon Jeffries. He's basically washed up right now. But, he was still a good player early on when he was healthy. Rager's a first-round pick. All right? I mean, maybe that's on Howie Roseman for not picking Jefferson from the Vikings, because that kid looks freaking good. But let's not even start with all these excuses about Carson Wentz don't have no weapons. All right? I mean, Carson Wentz did have, before he went down hurt, didn't Carson Wentz have one of the best tight ends in the league? And that's important for a weapon. A tight end, a really good tight end is an important weapon. And not only did they have him, they had one of the best backup tight ends in the league in Dallas Goedert. So that's not going to fly anymore, guys. So let's just stop the nonsense with all that. And then you look back at the O-line. People say, oh, he didn't have an O-line. Well, guys, have you seen the O-line injuries around the league? It's not like he's the only quarterback without an O-line. I mean, it's O-line. I mean, what's that guy from the Rams? I mean, granted, he's 50 years old, but he blew his knee out yesterday. I mean, O-linemen go down left and right. There's no team in the league that has all 5 linemen from March to March or April or May, whatever, until November 17th, completely healthy. There's no team in the league that's had their projected depth chart from then all the way healthy until now. It's just impossible. It's impossible luck. If there's one team out there, heck, they're doing well. But still, linemen, even top linemen who keep themselves in shape, are going down. And the Eagles, look, they've had their struggles. I mean, Lane Johnson went down. Jason Peters is old as crap, so I don't know why they relied on him instead of just picking up a kid from somewhere. I mean, the Eagles, they don't even understand team building. You got to get younger. They get older and wonder why they don't improve. But, look, back to Wentz. I mean, let's stop with all the excuses, guys. Let's just admit it. He ain't good. And you can call me, listen, I know people aren't going to take this. They're going to say, oh, you're just sitting there, you're a Cowboys fan, you're hating. You're hating on Wentz. Well, I just basically had dislike for Wentz because I'm not going to sit there and take some bullcrap argument that the mainstream, not just Eagles fans, the mainstream was supporting. The Dan Orlovskis, the Stephen A's, the Shannon Sharps. They were all supporting the argument of Carson Wentz is 10,000 times better than Dak Prescott. Carson Wentz can make throws that Dak Prescott can dream of, yada, yada, yada. We've heard all the nonsense. The only reason Dak Prescott's doing well because he has Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Zeke Elliott and this. Zeke Elliott ain't done crap all year. How do we talk about that? All right, I'll say that from a Cowboy. What has he done? All year, Zeke Elliott's done nothing. All right, Amari Cooper, yeah, he's been good, but it's not like Amari Cooper was Jerry Rice. CeeDee Lamb, yeah, he's got a lot of potential, but where's CeeDee Lamb been the past 4 weeks when Dak Prescott's gone? Oh, makes sense, right? Shows how valuable Dak is. Where Wentz, doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. But that's why I have this sort of dislike and that sort of outburst. Because I'm tired of that. I mean, that argument's been dead. I think they just gave up on it because they know it's not true no more. Okay, not even Carson Wentz can't even be in the same shadow as Dak Prescott. He can't hold his jock. That's a fact. I'll go down my career saying that if I even have one, for crying out loud. But I mean, I just had to get that off my chest because that really bothered me, just seeing all these excuses being around. I mean, the Eagles have a quarterback problem, and the worst thing about it is the quarterback they picked in the second round. That's what's also admitting for Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman knows his quarterback stinks. All right? And his quarterback is not only bad, but he gets hurt a lot. Because if those two weren't true, why the heck are you using a second-round pick, a premier pick, a pick that you use for a starting player on Jalen Hurts? Why are you picking him? Explain that to me. Don't even start with that, oh, he's Taysom Hill, it's a 2 quarterback. Like, come on. You guys ain't Sean Payton. You're freaking Doug Peterson. You're a ripoff of Andy Reid. That's what they are. They're a ripoff. Doug Peterson is a ripoff of Andy Reid, and Carson Wentz is a ripoff, great value. You know how Fruit Loops got Fruit Rounds? Carson Wentz is Fruit Rounds of the Pat Mahomes. he might make a Pat Mahomes play every once in a while, but we all know damn well, down in, down out, he ain't nowhere close to that. Not even close to any of the top quarterbacks. He, honestly, off that game yesterday, I might even take Danny Dimes over him. Danny Dimes. And we've been talking about how bad he's been for how many weeks now. But I can't even rip on Danny Dimes because he got to win. I guess you can discredit it because it's versus those crummy Eagles. But before we even move on to the other games, look at the Eagles' schedule. They got the Browns. They got New Orleans. I mean, the Eagles aren't going to win another game. Let's be real. Are they going to win another game? I don't think so. Outside this NFC, I mean, they could beat us. They beat the Cowboys. What does that mean? Beat the Giants when they should have lost to the Giants twice. They beat them once by 1 freaking point. I mean, Giants, if the Giants honestly didn't screw around in that Eagles game and didn't screw around in the Cowboys game, they'd be winning the division. Looking at this week going 5-5, going, holy crap, if we win a couple more, we're getting a playoff berth. Can you imagine that if you're the Giants and Joe Judge? You came in thinking you're going to be one of the worst teams ever with a screwy, crummy-ass quarterback. And you made the playoffs? Playoffs? I mean, Giants fans would lose their freaking mind. And they're not stupid to where like they'll be like the Eagles, where the Eagles thought after they won the division versus the Cowboys week 16, oh, we're going to make another run. Giants fans would know they would go to the playoffs and get smacked, but at least they could say they went to the playoffs. And that's terrible drought of losses since the boat trip. What are we at now since the boat trip? Thinking about it, since they won, I think it's 15 wins since the boat trip. Eesh. I mean, that's still bad, but if you make the playoffs, I mean, I'll shut up about the boat trip. I'll just, even though it's 3 years old, I'll shut up about X amount of wins since the boat trip. If the Giants make the playoffs, I'll shut them up. I already made the Giants a promise, saying, look, if you guys beat the Eagles this week, I'll take you out of the bottom 5. And guess what? Giants are out of the bottom 5. And guess who replaces them? All right, guys. Let's get a break, man. We'll expand, guys. We're going to expand more on these games. We'll expand more on some studs and duds coming up in the third segment. And we'll expand on a couple waiver guys I like. But we'll keep recapping these games. We're going to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back with some power rankings.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. All right, fellas, let's get into some power rankings here. Excuse me. Why do I always come in? I'm starting off the podcast, and I come in, my voice is hoarse as crap. Sounds like I've been smoking Marlboro Lights in my backyard. No, I do not smoke. Okay, but anyway, hey guys, cigarettes are cancer. Don't do that. Seriously, there's a lot, way. I mean, even the freaking puff bars that have your respiratory system all screwed up, that's even better for you than cigarettes. Don't smoke cigarettes. All right, make those cigarette companies that are making millions of dollars just go bankrupt. Hopefully. But let's get back to football. We're going to get into top 5, bottom 5, power rankings. Hey, guys, just power ranking these teams, all right, these so-called professional sports teams. Well, only the bottom 5 we should enable the so-called. That'll be a good label for them, the so-called NFL teams. And then the 5 Super Bowl contenders. That's how we should basically break it down. But let's get into it. Top 5 Buffalo Bills. And, I guess now's a good time to break down that heck of a game. I mean, oh my God, that game was awesome. I mean, you want to talk about action-packed, high scoring? Like, that had a combination of, like, the Big 12 scoring with the high energy, high magnitude, I guess was the right word. Just the aura that was around that game. I mean, it meant a lot for both teams. I mean, they were both good teams. They both needed a win to stay on top of their divisions. Their divisions are competitive. So, granted, while they might not be in the same conference, they still have to play tough opponents. So they need those wins. And you look at, before you even go to the Hopkins play, just look at some of the other, the way Josh Allen was playing was pretty good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. He looked really good. There was efficient. My man Cole Beasley was making plays. Beasley. I mean, that's something I thought, man, once he's gone, man, I love Cole Beasley, but he's a Romo product, Romo made him look good. Then Dak wasn't making him look good. Nah, Beasley can play, man. So he can play, he can rap, he could do it all. But you got to give him credit. You really got to give him credit where credit's due. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to put them at number 5 just because even though they lost that game off a heartbreaker, they're still a good team. And they still, look, they win. They give them the win, right? They're 8-2. 8-2. You're a top 5 team. So I'm not going to count out Buffalo, but I'm going to tell you what, that was a heck of a all-world play that really only DeAndre Hopkins can make, because that guy, I've never seen a receiver like that in a while. And it's not even with him, it's not the body control, or it is the body control. I was going to say, it's not the speed, it's not the size. He's not Calvin Johnson running 4.3 at 240 pounds. He's not that big. Like, the dude just can move his body in a certain way and torque his body, I should say, in a way to where he can have some really nice control when he's in the air. And then you combine that with his hands and his wrists. All right? Maybe that sounds a little too technical, but guys, when that football's spinning fast, if you ever catch, I've never caught a ball from an NFL quarterback, but I've caught passes just playing around with guys who played in college. And when they throw the ball, during the game, that ball's coming out fast. All right? And it's not like one of those Nerf footballs. No, a real football throwing at you fast. If you're just an average Joe, you never play football, all right, I'm telling you right now that you better have some freaking gloves on if you want to play flag, or you're just playing around catching from a serious pass. It takes incredible strength to really catch the football over and over and over again. And at the speed that these NFL quarterbacks are throwing the football, especially Kyler Murray with his baseball arm, while granted the ball don't go very far in the air over the line of scrimmage, when he throws those long balls, man, those are tough to catch. So Hopkins, he just has incredible strength in not only his hands but his wrists for the motion of the spiral motion of the ball to just stop on a dime and when it's in the air. It's maybe I'm going too in deep with it, but it's really incredible to me the way he plays the game. He does stuff that I just haven't seen in a while. Or ever. Granted, when I first started watching football, I thought T.O. was the best receiver of all time. Then these guys like Julio and Jaime, I'm like, what the heck? Where do they make these guys? And Calvin Johnson was different, but he's up there, man. That's all I know. And let's not forget Stephon Diggs. That's a really good player. Competitive as heck. That's what I love about him. He's really competitive, and he just seems like he wants it more than anyone else. I hope his brother, it looks like his brother's going to be the same. Anyway, back to the power rankings. So Buffalo 5, number 4. I'm going to go with New Orleans. New Orleans, they're just, they don't have Breeze, and I think that's going to be an IR injury with Breeze. But let's be real, guys. Breeze was not the strength of the team. And that sounds crazy to say. Crazy, because it's like, oh my God, this guy's a Hall of Fame quarterback. First ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. You're thinking, man, you're telling me this guy's not the strength? I mean, God, look at the tape. This it takes him all his might to throw the ball 50 yards. He can't do it. All right? I mean, when it's third and long, what are they doing? Go to Kamara. Kamara makes 20 people miss. They get the touchdown. I mean, Mike Thomas isn't even having any numbers this year. Why do you think that is? I think Mike Thomas is frustrated. I think that's really what his internal frustration is that he's not, he's got this big contract, and I think people are giving him crap for not living up to it when his numbers are going to be nowhere close to the numbers that he was producing last year and the year before that due to the limitations that Breeze has. So, but the Saints as a team, man, I mean, look, when one guy goes down, the train don't stop moving. Sean Payton just finds a way, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It could be he could draft Emmet Wyman from University of Yoo-Hoo, and I swear to God, he'll find a role for me. I'll trust you, Coach. I mean, Coach Payton will get me in at running back, maybe a couple snaps at receiver. He get me in maybe on a wildcat quarterback. Wildcat quarterback, check the paw prints. I mean, you never know. But I mean, listen, I don't know how he does it, where he finds some of these guys from, but they're making plays. And that's a simple reflection of outstanding coaching, which is what he is. So I got to give him and the Saints a lot of credit, and especially after that win versus the Bucs. I think that was a win because I'm not going to lie, I think I left them out of the top 5 that week, and I was saying, I don't know about New Orleans this year. I don't know if they're going to be that team. I think that was a game where they had to go out there and say, yo, we're still New Orleans, we're still here, we're not going away, we're not dead. So let's stop all that chitter chatter. And when they smacked Tampa, they let everybody know. So they're still in the top 5. Number 3, Green Bay. And this is pretty unenthusiastic with Green Bay. Green Bay, you almost lost to the freaking Jags. Aaron Rodgers, come on. Come on, Aaron Rodgers. Really? The Jags? The Jags. At your house, where they don't play in the cold. They play in the hot sun palm trees. You're playing at Lambeau. This is like a gimme. This Vegas spread was 14. You guys won by 4. Come on, Packers. And this is literally the same thing as last week, the Steelers and Cowboys. Steelers barely beating the Cowboys. It's like, come on. Like, you guys are better than that. But, I mean, Green Bay, they got to get a lot better on defense. And I said this for a while. Their run defense is horrible. Robinson was having, which is something that we predicted. I mean, Robinson was going to do whatever he wanted to that Packers run D. And then you look at on offense, I just think they were slow. I mean, they were really slow. They didn't have anything going for them. And the fact that you look slow versus Jacksonville defense, I mean, that's pretty concerning if that's me. But I don't know. I don't know where they go from here. I still think they're a top 3 team, and it's because of the man that Pat McAfee has on every Tuesday, Aaron Rodgers. He gives them a chance on every game, and they're still really explosive on I still believe they're explosive on offense, even though that does have me thinking otherwise. But win's a win, I guess, so they're still staying in the top 5. Number 2, KC. I mean, KC, every week these guys just keep rolling and rolling. I mean, they didn't play a game last week, but 8-1, they've been the team to beat, and I don't think anybody's going to stop them. Number 1, Pittsburgh. I'm going to still put them at number 1. I mean, they're 9-0, so it's hard to put anybody else at 1, even though KC's rolling. Pittsburgh, they got back on track. They beat the crap out of Cincinnati. I think everybody expected that. I think I had them in a teaser with somebody else that they did pretty well. But Steelers played Steeler football. I mean, they dominated on defense. They sacked the quarterback, forced turnovers. Then Big Ben controlled the game on offense. They didn't really try to do too much. They played Steelers football, so they got a nice win for them, and they should be doing all right going forward. So now, I guess now's the time where you got to get into the bottom 5, the teams that are just freaking awful. I mean, I would put the Cowboys in here, honestly, but they had a bye week last week. It's like they didn't do nothing to deserve the bottom 5. They did early on, but who knows? If they lose this week, I guess we'll put them back in. But Bottom 5, let's start off 28. Fly, Eagles, fly. I mean, who else? Eagles, you are bad, bad, bad. I mean, look at the Eagles' 3 wins. That's sometimes when these bad teams, you got to look at their wins. The Eagles' 3 wins. Look at the quarterbacks. Nick Mullins. Now, as much as we love Nick Mullins and, Kyle Shanahan might hype him up to be a really good player and he has a future and blah, 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 Nick Mullins can't play. Okay? We all know he ain't no starting quarterback. So you beat a backup on Sunday night. Good job. So that's your first win. Second, Ben DiNucci. Let's just scratch that. Win number 3, Danny Dimes. You tied with the Bengals. That's embarrassing. The Bengals were picking 1 last year. They still ain't a good team. They just have a future quarterback. That's the only difference from their team this year to last year. And T. Higgins looks good. So their offense is a little bit better. Their defense still stank. Their toughness is still bad. They're still not a good team, is what I'm trying to say. So it's not like the Eagles are beating anybody impressive. And to be honest with you, I don't think they can beat anybody. I'm looking at their schedule right now. They have Cleveland, L. All right, let's mark that in. Next week, Seattle, L. Next week, Green Bay, L. Next week after that, New Orleans, L. That's 4 L's in a row for the Eagles. So now they're at 3-9. Then they got the Cardinals. That's another L. They're not beating the Cardinals, right? 3-10. Then they get the Cowboys. So that's probably going to be a win. So they'll go to 4 wins, and then they get the Redskins the final week, which would probably be another win, right? So 5 wins for the Eagles. I mean, they're not going anywhere. Let's just be real about it. They're going to be looking at a number 1 pick with the way their ship is headed. And call it bold. I don't care. That team ain't good, and I'll go to my grave saying that. Number 29, Houston Texans. Houston is just lousy. I mean, they actually played pretty good defense versus the Browns. Granted, the weather conditions were bad, so no team was able to score. But, man, they got locked down by that Browns defense. Absolutely locked down. Myles Garrett was getting pressure from all over the place. The D-tackles were pushing the pocket. Watson couldn't even get the ball to any of his receivers. And then the run game was with my man Duke Johnson was nothing. So, where do you go from here if you're Houston? Honestly, where do you go from here? I don't know. Because it's like you want to tank, but you can't tank with the Deshaun Watson. Houston has a really good quarterback, and they're just throwing him down the toilet. Seriously, he's going right down the toilet. He's never going to win there. Especially, Romeo's pretty sleazy too. So, I guess this year they all know it's just a throwaway year, so we could put the Texans in the bottom 5 every single week. Number 30, Washington football team. Guys, I thought they were going to go Haskins, but turns out they went back to Alex Smith, basically summing up what I said on the last show, how bad of a quarterback Dwayne Haskins really is. And not only that, how bad of a person he is. And I mean person as in character, leadership, character, stuff you need to be a good quarterback. He don't got that. So, look, they came out, got blown the frick out by Detroit. The Lions are so bad on defense. You let Alex Smith score 21 points in the 4th quarter. Alex Smith's playing on one leg, and you let him score 24 points in the 4th quarter. Oh, my God. Matt Patricia, you should be fired right then and there. Even though you won the game, it's like, come on. Alex Smith, he's not throwing the ball more than 5 yards down the field. He can't even throw a fly route. He doesn't even move. He looked like Nick Foles, and worse than Nick Foles on Monday night, who can't move either. This is going back to my point. You guys remember when I said the true days of the pocket passers, the Eli Mannings, the Phillip Rivers, the Peyton Mannings, the Tom Bradys, the Nick Foles, and those guys it's done. That prototype quarterback, 6'5", stand like a statue, hit a rocket over the middle, Joe Flacco, Matt Stafford, it's done. Those guys are done. It's a new era. These quarterbacks are mobile as heck. They're dual threats. Everybody's a dual threat. All the top quarterbacks are dual threats. So, Washington, their quarterback not even a threat. screw a dual threat. So the fact that the Lions should be in the bottom 5 too, just for letting that happen. But Washington, I mean, come on, your defense is this another thing I talked about. Where is this dominant defensive front? Like, where are these guys? Where is, I mean, this, on paper, when you look at them, you go, wow, man, Chase Young, number 2 pick, bona fide stud. Montez Sweat, bona fide stud. Jonathan Allen, one of my favorite interior linemen in the league, he's a stud. I mean, linebackers, Kerrigan. I mean, all these guys, Deron Payne, and it's like nothing. Their defense is nothing. How you got all these studs? I mean, yeah, their defense is good versus Andy Dalton and the Cowboys, but versus the other teams, where it at? I mean, you just don't see it. And it's, I mean, Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera, I don't know what they're doing, but that defense ain't good. Their team is just not well coached. Period. So I don't think they're going to be good next year, the year after that. And if they never get a quarterback, nobody's going to worry about them. So number 31, Redskins will be number 30, or Washington nobodies will be 30. Jacksonville Jaguars 31. I think they're the staple from now on. I mean, Jacksonville, ever since Jacksonville's won that first game, they're 0-8. Okay, so Jacksonville, well, they might have won. They might have had this. They might have had a little hoorah. Jacksonville is who we thought they were. They're at 1-8. 8 in a row. L's. I mean, 11 win percentage. The Jags they're not going to be anybody, is my point. And then number 32. Give a shout out to the Jets, man. They came up close, but no cigar for the Jets as they are 0-9 and basically going to secure Trevor Lawrence if they don't win a game. I don't know if they will. Jacksonville hopes they do, but I don't know if they will. So there it is, man. Bottom 5, top 5. Let's get into a break, and then let's talk some real fantasy talk. We'll get into some studs and duds, and then mention some waiver wire guys in the final segment. So stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's going to get into studs and duds here to wrap up this show, and we'll get into some waiver wire pickups. But studs and duds, man, Week 10, we've had a lot of them. Let's just go right into it. Quarterbacks, Tom Brady was pretty good. I mean, Tom Brady did the Tom Brady thing and did his thing, and he scored, man. I mean, he scored as much as he wanted to, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, Carolina, they don't really have that much talent in the secondary, so if you could block them up front, it's just pretty easy too because their line's pretty young. And Tampa, their O-line's still good. I mean, even though they got wrecked after that New Orleans game, I think they wanted to rebound and come and really push these guys out the water, which they did early on. They were running the ball. I mean, that thing was it a 99 or 98? It was a big run by Ronald Jones. Once he hit that, I mean, the game was over. You just knew it. So really good win for the Bucs, but Tom Brady was distributing the ball really well. It was even, but it was pretty easy to do, if we're going to be honest with you. The O-line was great. The receivers got open. Mike Evans made some fantastic catches. And they just did their thing. So I guess we'll give a shout-out to Tom Brady. Kyler Murray, every week he's in the studs because he's a stud. He's the MVP of this league. Yeah, I said it. Well, really, the MVP should be Kamara, but I think he's going to win it at this point. The plays he's making, the highlights are just ridiculous. The play to Hopkins. Look, while that was such a great catch, let's not act like that throw was not right on a freaking dime. Hopkins just had to go up, grab it, which is the hard part. That ball's got to be in place, and he did that. But before that, Kyler Murray's just the way he is so explosive and just different than everybody else on the field is something that I don't think people really understand. I didn't really understand it until I saw him play consistently, and it's like, wow, this guy really is different. You saw why he was so good in high school, so good in college on such a limited basis. But, now that he's really starting to grasp the game and really understand how professional football works, he could be a really good player. And he's already is, but his height is still always going to be a deficiency. I don't know if he's going to get over it. But he's using his athleticism now to just run by some dudes and make them look silly, honestly. There's some runs where he pockets the ball and he just starts going, man. There's some defensive coordinators that are holding their breath. Because they know when he runs, it can go for a touchdown. It really can. Like, he'll slide, and like I said, man, he's got one of the prettiest slides, too. Not to have the guys, down my throat, but, let's be honest. He makes it look pretty. He really does, and it's fun to watch. So to have him on your fantasy team, man, that is just a gift. Big Ben, again, easy game for Big Ben. Playing a garbage defense, you got all your receivers out there, your O-line's back. Nothing could go wrong. So, that was a pretty obvious stud for Big Ben. Josh Allen, I think a lot of people would be talking about him, considering how well he did. So I think that he had a really good game, but they would talk about him in the MVP conversation if they ended up pulling out that win versus Arizona. And I think that's it. That's really all I could think of for studs. Let's get into duds. Nick Foles is horrible. I think that's it for Nick Foles. He put up 2 points. He was pathetic. He was really pathetic. He couldn't move at all. And I think once the Vikings found out, like, you're really just going to stand there like a statue? Okay, we'll send a blitz again and again and again and again. And they just kept sending it, and it kept coming, and they couldn't do anything about it. So I don't think really anybody was starting Nick Foles, but, man, he is just bad. Baker Mayfield, a dud. He's a dud every week. The guy doesn't even show up. But, he didn't need to this week. His defense was locked down. His run game was explosive. Those running backs for Cleveland are really, really, really good. Their run game as a whole is really good. Bill Callahan getting that offensive line in shape, just having them run some dudes over. They literally just ran the ball the whole game. And, looking back on it, that was a bet I definitely should have made. Even though it was 3.5, you would have gotten screwed. There was no way the Browns were going to lose that game. They were just going to run the ball down the Texans' throat. And considering that the Texans weren't going to be able to stop it, Baker didn't have to do anything. So it was a pretty simple game plan, and it executed pretty well. Derek Carr, dud. But, look, he didn't get in the end zone much. He had a solid game, controlled the ball, but similar to Baker, to where the running backs really did the dirty work. Drew Brees got hurt. He was pretty much a dud. Carson Wentz is a dud. Tannehill looked bad on Thursday night. He's got to get back on track. And then my last two duds, it might be a little surprising. Russell Wilson was a dud. He was a dud. Russell Wilson looked horrible. And that was kind of, I didn't want to open up the show by saying that, but I think that's probably my other bold take is just how bad Russell Wilson looked. That throw to that pick in the back left of the end zone, what the heck is he looking at? The turf was wide ass open. You could just ran for a first down. He's throwing, that ball is horrible. I don't know what the heck was he looking at, but I think after this game, Russell's out of the MVP. He went from being the favorite to now he's completely out of the race. There's no way you're going to give him the MVP after that. He was horrible. I don't know, man. That's not a Russell Wilson-like game. Maybe he gets back on track, but we'll see. That just wasn't good at all. And then Jared Goff was, my God. Jared Goff, I don't know why I said I recommended him. I granted the Seattle defense is really bad. So I thought, man, this guy would just be good. But, of course, the running backs did all the work. Jared Goff just did nothing, and that was a stupid pick by me. I had no business picking Jared Goff for anything related to scoring points in fantasy. I shouldn't have done it. Let's go to running backs now. Running back studs. Kamara's a stud every single week. Listen, catch the ball in the flat, makes 20 guys miss, he scores. That's Kamara. That should be put on a T-shirt. Josh Jacobs got back to his ways, man. Really workhorse back, getting back in there. 2 touchdowns for the Raiders. He's a workhorse, man. If the Raiders' O-line's healthy, Jacobs is a starter every single week. Ronald Jones, his numbers are kind of inflated from that 98 run, but take that out. He did all right still. 23 points for Ronald Jones. He's a player that, he kind of fell off, but maybe he's getting back on track. I don't know. I think Tampa's rotating these backs between him and Fournette, and they're trying to work in the rookie as well. So it's a committee going on, which is why I'm not really a fan of all of them. But it is what it is if you're a Ronald Jones owner. Nyheim Hines looked really good. He looked really good on Thursday night. I didn't talk about that enough in my Friday show, but he showed a lot of juice. I don't know if he's going to be the workhorse back going forward. I don't think so. I still think it's Taylor, and I still think they're going to use Wilkins, even though Wilkins is horrible. But I think with Taylor, they're going to give the ball on 3rd and 1s and goal line, but Nyheim Hines is going to be your passing back. And I think on the 3rd and longs, where he might catch a ball, go up the field 15 yards, that could be a good play. But I don't know where he's going to be going forward, because Frank Reich is so unpredictable. He rotates his running backs. He rotates them like they're a merry-go-round. He did the same thing in Philly when he brought in Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount and Corey Clement. All these, he just kept rotating all them. Darren Sproles. So you never know what you're going to get. DeAndre Swift, finally, man. DeAndre Swift looked really good versus the Redskins. Again, everybody looks good versus Washington. But Swift is a really good player. I think we can all see that now. I think the Lions finally see it, which is why they're not playing AP as much. Finally, 10 weeks in the year, you finally sat down AP for your guy you picked in the 2nd round. Now, that makes sense. That's why those guys won't have a job next year, but that's another discussion. But anyway, DeAndre Swift, look, he's a problem. He's a problem. So if you got him, you're starting him, you're smiling, and you're kicking back. For the rest of the year, he's an every week starter. So it took a while for those DeAndre Swift owners. Some might have gave up on him, but he's back. He's looking good. Nick Chubb looked good. Did his work for the Brownies. Gibson, they're giving a lot of volume to. I think Gibson was really good, though. He has an ability to find his way on the shorts downs and convert it, and he just has a way on goal line and red zone to make the most out of his touches. So I really like him going forward. I don't know where they go, and just between him and McKissick, but Antonio, considering it's Alex Smith who can't do anything, right? He's either going to dunk it down to Gibson or McKissick, so McSuckett, I call him. That's why I can't even say his name, because I'm so used to calling him McSuckett. But McSuckett's going to have 10 receptions a game. So he's actually not really a McSuckett for fantasy. He actually is a viable running back. If he's on waivers, pick him up. If you haven't already, I would actually pick him up. And I know that sounds crazy, calling him McSuckett. I'm calling him McSuckett because I got Antonio Gibson in all my leagues, and I love Antonio Gibson. But, with the way it's going, with how bad the quarterback is for the Redskins, they're going to need all their running backs. So the volume will be there for both, is my point. Let's go to some duds now. Duds, Zach Moss, nothing. Nothing. Which is pretty surprising considering how close the game was. But they didn't use him. They didn't use him or Singletary. They were both duds. John Taylor was a dud. We talked about him more on the Friday show. Mike Davis was a dud. Mike Davis, man, I thought he was going to come in with that workhorse, but once the Panthers fell behind, they just kind of abandoned the run game, which makes sense. But Mike Davis is definitely not a guy you drop. You definitely hold on to him this week, especially versus Detroit. And it sounds like McCaffrey's not going to play another week. What do you know, guys? What did I say about McCaffrey? Not trying to make a joke or nothing, but let's be real. Once you come back for an injury, that doesn't mean you're never going to get hurt again. If anything, you're more prone to get hurt. So all those people were like, oh yeah, Mike Davis, we'll just scrap him. McCaffrey's back. You're an idiot. You're really an idiot. I mean, because you're going to want him back, if anything. James Conner, dud. Did absolutely nothing, which kind of surprised me. 13 carries, 36 yards. James Conner's a good back, but James Conner's not explosive at all. He is slow as hell. I mean, he's slow. He's not explosive at all, and I think that's why they drafted this McFarland kid. I expect them to get him rolling pretty soon because he shows a lot of speed and explosion. James Conner doesn't at all, and he's not. His vision isn't all that either. I think he's a good back still. I think he's definitely, for a backup, I would definitely take him. But for a full-time starting back, I don't think James Conner's that. And that's why I don't think they're going to re-sign him in the offseason. They're going to go forward with Benny Snell and McFarland. Kenyon Drake was pretty blah. Aaron Jones, pretty blah. I guess that's it for the Dodgers. Just going through the list. Oh, here's the last Gio Bernard. But if you started Gio Bernard, you're an idiot. So let's go to receivers now. Receiver studs for the week. Chase Claypool, stud, man. Getting those red zone targets. Chase Claypool doesn't get those targets from the 20 to 20, but once he gets in that 20, he gets a lot of targets. And guys, I'm telling you, if this guy gets one touchdown a game, he's extremely valuable. Some of you guys, I mean, he got 2 touchdowns. People don't understand how good that is. All right? I think maybe some people saw that 4-touchdown game and thought that was going to happen again. Guys, like, have you watched football? Like, that doesn't happen ever. That rarely happens. All right? Terrell Owens did it once, and I was glad to witness it. But aside from that, like, there's nobody's getting 4 touchdowns in one game in multiple games. It's just not happening. 2 touchdowns in multiple games is really hard to do, and he's doing it. So, man, this guy's getting a lot of targets. He's an extremely valuable fantasy player. A guy that came out of nowhere but had a good game, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I mean, he's got extreme butterfingers, but he could run really fast. And I think he's a good deep threat for the Packers. Alan Lazard's coming back, so I don't know how he's going to function in with his snaps, but I don't know. I think Valdez-Scantling, though, he does deserve a waiver consideration. I don't know if he's really a starter player, but it's just with him, he's inconsistent. That's why I'm not really trusting him that much. DeAndre Hopkins was a stud, but we don't even need to explain that. He speaks for himself. Deontay Johnson, he is stud. That guy is good. Deontay's really good, man. I mean, he has some serious talent, and he runs with some really nice juice that it's hard to find in these receivers, man. I just love his game. He's another one. If he gets like consistent with those small details, he takes this next offseason and he goes in, attacks the basics day in, day out. He could be one of the best receivers in the league because the talent is there, man. The talent is there with Deontay. I like him a lot. Definitely an every week starter. Thielen, stud. Got 2 touchdowns. Cole Beasley had a really good game, man. He had a really good game. That kind of surprised me. And I think that's it. T. Higgins had a good game, too. He caught some balls. So I guess if there's a positive for the Bengals fans, it's T. Higgins. So let's go to some duds now. Cooper Kupp, dud. But like I said, every week Cooper Kupp is a dud. Cooper Kupp is, I mean, the guy gets, like, no burn on the red zone. So what are you going to expect from him? DJ Chark, dud, but he doesn't have a quarterback, so there's nothing to expect. Allen Robinson, dud. He doesn't have a quarterback. I mean, some of these guys, I'm not going to, they just don't have quarterbacks, so it's kind of hard to make, a reason for them being just god-awful fantasy-wise if they're not getting the ball thrown their way. Will Fuller, dud. I mean, that was surprising me. Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, I thought they were going to have some really good games, and they just didn't. And maybe a lot of it is the weather conditions, but I don't know about that one. Tyler Boyd as well. He was a dud, but again, everybody on the Bengals except T was a big flat 0. So it is what it is. If these quarterbacks play better, maybe they'll perform better. Let's finish up. Tight ends. Studs for tight ends. Gronkowski was a stud. He got a touchdown. Gronk looks like he's back, man. Scary to say, but I think Gronk might be an every week starter. And I was the guy saying week 3, week 4, just cut him, move on. He's slow, he sucks. He needs to go back to Fox Sports, but he shut me up real quick, man. He's looking good. The other tight end, too, for the Bucks, Brait, he looks good, too. So Tampa's got some weapons, man, they can have fun with. Jonnu Smith had a nice touchdown on Thursday night to kind of break his cold streak. Hunter Henry looked good. He had some nice catches. And, Hunter Henry's a really good tight end, guys. He's a really good tight end. He just doesn't get that same credit anymore because he kind of got hurt and his career kind of had a pause. But the talent's there with Hunter Henry. Let's go to some duds now. Duds. Darren Waller was a dud. Dud. What up, Darren Waller, man? Come on. They forced some targets to him. He had that drop down the sideline, man. Darren, you cannot drop those passes, bro. That's a touchdown. So, is Darren really a dud? I guess for this week. But, as a player, no. Gesicki, dud. Gesicki's done nothing, man. I think he was the one player that was actually doing better with Fitzpatrick before they went over to Tua. I guess that's it for just straight up duds. Robert Funyon hasn't done anything since the Falcons game, but I think that's something I've been saying all week long. So let's take a break. We're going to come back, finish the show up real quick. I got about 3 names on waivers. We'll talk about them and just give you some pointers from going forward in your fantasy season-long league. So we'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, welcome back. Final segment, GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Let's get into some waivers. Guys, the waivers are dead, so this is going to be real short. Let's be real about it. There's literally, I can't give you more than 3 names. All right, so we might as well just start out, roll them out. Salvon Ahmed, I don't know where the heck the Dolphins got this kid from, but I'm telling you what, watching the Dolphins game, man, he looks good. He looks really good. He looks explosive. He looks a lot better than Jordan Howard, who they just cut. So that's going to prove that he's going to get a lot of volume. Myles Gaskins looks good, but Myles Gaskins is hurt, so he's not doing anything for them right now. I know they have another guy. They have Matt Breida, but I think he's hurt as well. So Salvon Ahmed is the guy, and he's going to start. So you're looking for a starting running back. I think if I had to classify him, maybe I'd say he's probably a flex play this week, but just a good starter that you want. That's your only guy that I'd really rush to the waivers to claim, because I think this kid looks really good and he has some juice going forward. Guys, aside from that, though, I can't give you anybody. Don't tell me you're going to go pick up Carson Wentz off waivers. That's not happening. Maybe Dallas Goedert, if you haven't picked him up, maybe pick him up. Devontae Parker, Jacoby Myers are names that are available in a lot of leagues, but they're both maybes as well. Devontae Parker, I think he's interesting to me because I'd expect him to do really well, especially with the evolution of Tua over these next few weeks. You'd expect his numbers to increase as well. But I don't. It's just not happening.
I mean, 2 points, 3 points, it's just not happening with Devontae Parker. And this went back to my point that I said a while ago about, players' breakout years. I mean, we've been waiting for too long about Devontae Parker. I mean, his breakout year, if it was going to happen, it should have already happened. Granted, he had the Adam Gase coaching stink that kind of, stalled his growth. But, I mean, look, I don't think coaching is going to fix him at this point. He is what he is. Myers is interesting. He was able to get 6 points, he got 9 points in the rain versus the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know where he's going to go going forward. Had 16 or 17 points on the Jets, but New England's passing offense is pretty weak, and it starts with Cam Newton. But yeah, let's be real. Cam Newton's a 55% completion passer, right? So the numbers going forward for Cam and Jacoby are probably not going to be that good. And I'm not even talking about fantasy numbers. I'm just talking about passing and receiving statistics. That's a running football team. And when they get down the goal line, what are they doing? Read option. It's either Cam's going to keep the ball or they're going to hand it to a back. And it's probably going to be the back that's sitting on your bench. Not the back that you got starting, because that's just the way it is. I swear to God, versus Houston, I have Damian Harris on my team. If they start giving the ball, or they start doing read option, or they give the ball to Burkhead at the goal line, I'm going to go crazy. Because I think after that game, if you don't think Damian Harris is a starting running back, I don't know what to tell you. He was the only reason that Patriots offense was moving to begin with. All right, they weren't going to move, period, because it was just downpour rain, so you couldn't throw the ball. All right, so Damian Harris was literally carrying that offense with 22 carries. This is the guy I told you to pick up on waivers 4 weeks ago, or 5 weeks ago now, whenever he came back for the Chiefs game. This is the guy I was telling you to draft, crying out loud, but he went to IR, so it kind of killed him early on. He got placed on a lot of waivers, so you had another opportunity to get him. So that's what I'm saying with the point about waivers now. Like, there were so many opportunities to get guys that should be filling in for your injuries. There's so many opportunities. So if you're scrambling now to get more guys, I mean, look, I can't help you. All right? You can go to Matt Berry's show. They might tell you to take a chance on this backup or this, but he ain't doing crap. Come on, be real about it, guys. I mean, when you pick up a player, if you're picking up that player, you gotta say, does this guy have any chance of starting for my team? You gotta answer that honestly. If he doesn't, don't pick him up. All right? He might be a backup when you pick him up, but you say, in the future, does this guy have any shot of starting for my team? All right? So, like, for example, this week, I'm going to cut Le'Veon Bell. Why? Because, I mean, look, I'm done. All right, Le'Veon Bell has no shot of starting for my team. The only reason I was hanging on to Le'Veon is if Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets hurt. But now it's getting to a point where even if Helaire went down, they would probably start that Darrell Williams guy over him. And Bell wouldn't get any other snaps. So I'm done with him. And I picked up Salvon Ahmed because, I mean, look, I honestly think Ahmed can start for my team if he's going to get the workhorse carries. If he gets 20 carries, yeah, he's going to start for my team. So you have to look at it like that when you're evaluating. But you should know who your players are. You should know who you can rely on, which is most important. And, you know, if you haven't, just look at the numbers, guys. The numbers are never going to lie, especially in a game where the numbers will never lie. All right? So it is what it is. Just find your niche, find your guys, and cross your fingers going forward, man. But good luck to every one of you. Guys, I'm going to be out of here. This was an hour-long show, nice recap show. Hopefully you hit that Dolphins running back. Aside from that, I got no other advice for you. Defense, I haven't even looked at defenses this week. What's their name? Dolphins. If Dolphins defense is out there, pick them up because they're playing Broncos, and it looks like, I mean, Broncos got a lot of quarterback problems. I mean, it sounds like Drew Lock might not even play, so they got to go back to that Ripien kid. Oh, boy, he's going to get wrecked. But Drew Lock in himself looks like a freaking dud. So you honestly could just start fading the Broncos after seeing the Raiders defense lock them down with my man Pothead David Irving. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. Hit me up.
Emmet_Wyman22 on Twitter. You got a fantasy question, hit GSMC_FFootball. Direct message, comment, repost all the podcasts on all networks, Spotify, YouTube, Spreaker Network. You can find this podcast everywhere. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate you listening, man. So shout out to everyone out there just grinding, man, trying to go about their life each and every day with that same hustle, man. It's never going to stop. So my name's Emmet Wyman. I appreciate you guys listening. I'm out of here.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.